Have you ever felt like God put your prayer on hold and then just went quiet? Like you did everything right. You prayed, you trusted, you waited, and still nothing moved. That silence doesn't just hurt. It makes you question everything. When the waiting breaks you, you know that moment when you sit in the car after work, hands still on the wheel, not because you're tired, but because you don't have the energy to pretend you're okay once you walk through the door? Or the bathroom, crying quietly so nobody hears, splashing cold water on your face before you go back out there. You go to church, you smile, but inside, you're watching everyone else get the thing you've been asking God for. The wedding, the baby, the breakthrough, the testimony video, and your prayer is still sitting there. Unanswered. That's not a small hurt. That is a deep, grinding ache. And here's what I want you to know before we go any further. God already named that feeling. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 12. He didn't say hope deferred makes the weak believer sick. He didn't say hope deferred means you're not trusting enough. He said the heart gets sick. Full stop. That's the human experience of waiting, and he knew it. There's even research on this. A study from University College London found that people experienced more stress from uncertainty than from a guaranteed bad outcome. People were calmer knowing pain was definitely coming than not knowing if it would come at all. So the anxiety you feel in this season, that's not just spiritual. That's woven into how you are made. Your grief in this waiting is not weakness. It is honesty. And God would rather have your honest sorrow than a performance of peace you don't actually feel. God is not punishing you. Now, here's where most people get this wrong. When the wait stretches on, the natural conclusion is, I must have done something wrong. God must be disappointed in me. This is some kind of punishment. But consider David, anointed as king when he was still a teenager. God chose him. The oil was on his head. The promise was real. And then, caves, years of running, spears thrown at him by the very king he faithfully served, around 15 years between the promise and the throne. Was that punishment? No. The cave was doing something the palace never could. It was breaking his ego before the crown could inflate it. It was teaching him to lead with mercy instead of pride. David wrote some of the most tender, raw psalms of his life in that wilderness. Maybe, and I say maybe gently, the thing you're waiting for requires a version of you that isn't quite here yet. Not because you failed, but because some things, given too soon, don't bless us. They expose us. The prodigal son's father had the wealth to give. The inheritance was real, but the son wasn't ready to carry it, and what looked like a gift became wreckage. That's not a cruel father. That's a careful one. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. James chapter 1 verses 2 through 3. Perseverance doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in the waiting room. The story that changes everything. There's a moment in John chapter 11 that I think about often. Lazarus is sick. His sisters, Martha and Mary, send word to Jesus immediately. They know he can help. They trust he loves them. And then John writes something that should stop us cold. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. John chapter 11 verses 5 through 6. Did you catch that? So, he delayed because he loved them? He didn't come in time for the miracle they asked for. He arrived in time for a miracle they couldn't have imagined. Not a healing, a resurrection. Martha met him on the road and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. That's not just Martha's line, that's your line, that's mine. If you had come when I called, and Jesus didn't correct her grief, he wept with her, then he raised Lazarus from the dead. Here's the quiet possibility in that story. Sometimes the answer you're begging for isn't the ceiling of what God is doing. It might be the floor. You ask for relief. Perhaps he's building something in you that outlasts the problem. I am the Lord, and it's time I will do this swiftly. Isaiah chapter 60 verse 22 swiftly comes, but it follows a silence that can feel endless. You are not forgotten. Joseph interpreted a dream correctly, helped a man get out of prison, and still sat in a cell for 2 more years afterwards. Why? Because his release was tied to a moment bigger than his comfort. The cupbearer only remembered him when Pharaoh needed a dream interpreted. Joseph's freedom was connected to a story Joseph couldn't see from his cell. Maybe some of what you're waiting for is like that. Not just about you. The person who needs what God is building in you. They might not be in position yet. The door that's meant to open might be waiting on something or someone completely outside your control. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11. Not just beautiful in general. Beautiful in its time. Timing is part of the gift. What the wait is doing in you. The waiting season strips things away, and that can feel like loss. But some of what it removes was blocking you from knowing God, not just knowing about Him. It asks the hardest question. Do you want God, or do you only want what He can give you? That question hurts, because sometimes the honest answer surprises us. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31. That verse doesn't promise the wait ends soon. It promises renewal inside the wait. Strength that comes back. Not because circumstances changed, but because you stayed close to the one who holds them. So if you're in this season right now, tell God the truth. Stop performing faith you don't feel. Ask Him to meet you exactly where you are, because that's where He already is. What have you been waiting on God for, and which part of this spoke to you most? The protection, the preparation, or simply feeling less alone in it? Leave it in the comments. This channel is here for people in the middle of the hard season, not the other side of it. Subscribe if that's the kind of space you need.